Impale makes me feel like it's an abdomen situation. But I guess the got stabbed with a pencil in the butt, that's not going to be the craziest thing that anyone has ever had to deal with.
How to survive the classroom.
Hey, teacher besties. I hope you guys are having a absolutely fabulous week. I have to tell you, my brain is in a million different places because I am in the midst of moving and house prepping and all of that. And if you're following on my Instagram, you've seen the chaos that I have committed to. I just replaced an exterior light on my porch, and I am cracking up at the amount of people that are DMing me and are like, why are you doing this stuff yourself? You need to be paying somebody else. First of all, I can do it myself. I have access to YouTube, and I was raised by my father, who has always said like, we could probably figure it out, right? Like, it can't be that hard. And to be fair, replacing the exterior light, not that challenging. And so it's a $20 light fixture that I put in. And this, I feel like, is just like a teacher mentality, right? Is like, I could teach myself to do it, right? I could figure it out. And so I removed the light fixture. There was a giant, what looked like a wasp nest inside of the light fixture. It has thankfully it did not have any inhabitants in it at the time, but I like scraped it out. And I also realized that my house was built in the 60s. And I found this out through someone DMing me that in the 60s, there was like a copper shortage. And so they didn't do grounding wires for a bit. So like almost all my outlets in the house don't have any grounding, right? Or didn't. But now, since that they were supposed to have been before we moved in, but this definitely did not. So there's supposed to be 3 wires. And I'm like really just flying by the seat of my pants, like Googling, watching YouTube, all of that. But I did it. And I managed to get all the way to the end, doing this all on my own, very proud of myself, right? Like, I'm an independent woman, I can do this. And then you have to like, basically there's 2 wires that were coming out of the house. There should be 3, but there were 2 wires coming out of the house. There's a white one and a black one. And then for your fixture, you have a white and a black one. And you have to attach the black to black and white to white. And so I'm doing all of that, but it can't do it with 2 hands. So I did, in fact, have to get help. My husband had to hold it up so I could connect them and everything. And then there's this little screw I had to put on, and it promptly fell off and into the black mulch underneath. I ended up spending like so much time, like 20 minutes digging through the freaking mulch, and could not find spiders, worms, centipedes, all of the things that live in my nightmares. It was absolutely horrible. And while I'm doing this, my sweet, sweet son is scootering around with so much sass, right? He's 5, and I don't know where he gets his bits from, but he cracks himself up. He scootered up to us. Like, I'm stressed, right? Because now we're at the point in the project where like my husband would rather I don't do electrical work because, you know, if I burn the house down, he says that it's like a problem, apparently. And so I'm doing this, and we're like doing that thing as couples where you're just like, you start really over enunciating things. Well, why did you drop the screw? I did not mean to drop the screw. And so my son scooters by, stops, and looks at my husband, and he goes, "Daddy." My husband's like, "Yeah, what is it? What is it, bud?" And he's like, "Where's your forehead?" And we both kind of stop and look at, we're like, "What? What do you mean, where's your forehead?" Because now, a little context here, because I don't have my husband on a lot of videos. My husband's bald. And so my son goes, "Where's your forehead, Daddy?" And my husband like pointed to his forehead. He went, "Huh, but where does it end?" And then he scootered away before my husband could answer, before I could answer. And I like, that is the gift of kids, right? Is like, we're clearly having a moment. Like, we're so stressed. I dropped the stupid screw. I might be burning down the house. We don't know. And my son comes over, just roasts my husband, and then scooters away. And when he scooters on this little scooter, he like kicks his back leg up in like such a sassy way. I cannot. It absolutely cracked me up. So I hope that you guys have sassy 5-year-olds in your life to remind you not to take things too seriously, because it was 100% something that we needed in that moment. But I also wanted to talk to you guys. I have a friend who has a daughter who's ADHD. And so she's been asking me, I've known this friend forever, and she knows I am like chronically ADHD. This morning, actually, I was literally like spinning in circles because my brain kept being like, I need to, oh, wait, no, I need to, oh, wait, no. And like spun in a full circle. And my husband was like, go take your medicine. And I was like, you're right, you're right, you're right, you're right. So my friend emails me and she was asking me because she's got a daughter who's got ADHD and she doesn't. Like her brain, she's like very neurotypical and she is like now trying to figure out how to best support her daughter and how to best set things up for her daughter's brain. And so I was sharing some of the things that I would recommend, both as a kid who had ADHD and also as an educator. And so I thought I would share some of those with you guys as well. If you do have either, students in your class or kids, or for yourself, if you're just now discovering that you're ADHD. And again, a lot of these things are very much things that are helpful for everyone. So it's not like, oh, if you did this for somebody who's neurotypical, it's going to be like weird. It's more just that in order for me to function, I have to have this kind of structure. So a good example of what I have to do for myself in order to be at my best is that I have a paper planner, like old school paper planner. And if I write something in that planner for the day, I write it down and I put a circle by it so I can fill in the circle because I get myself a little like happy boost when I get to fill in the circle. And if I'm going to be working on my book, I have to write a word count. So right now it's summer. I'm trying to catch up with my word count for my my teacher survival guidebook that I'm working on. And so I've been working really hard on catching up. And so I'm like, okay, I can do 2,000 words a day. But I can't sit down and be still for writing 2,000 words. Now, I can write about 1,000 words an hour. That's generally, which for those of you guys, that's like 4 pages, double spaced, 12-point font. Okay. So I can do that in an hour, but I can't do 8 pages of writing in 2 hours. My brain would quit, right? So what I have to do for myself is I set a timer. And this is so typical for ADHD people to give yourself a sense of urgency, set a timer, and give yourself the task that you have to complete in that time. And then if you finish the task before the end of that time, then the rest of that time is your time. Okay. So for example, in the morning, I set a timer. I say, okay, I've got 1 hour. I need to get 1,000 words done. If I finish the 1,000 words in 45 minutes, I can scroll on TikTok or do something else fun for the remaining 15 minutes. But I cannot do that until that's done. And so that's what I shared with my friend. I was like, that is something that helps me be able to function. And I also have to have very structured steps of, okay, at this time I have to be doing this. And it's complete, like no one's telling me to do this, but it is incredibly difficult for me if I don't tell myself when I have a time to start and a time that I have to be done by. My brain can't handle it and I get frozen and I just end up watching The Office for the 73rd time, which is also a valid use of time. It is summer, but for the purposes of making sure I finish my book and get it to you guys, I have to actually give myself some structure. And so what I was sharing with her is I was like, okay, so with your daughter, if you can tell her hey, you have 2 minutes to do this, or at 8 a.m. is the time that you need to be down at the table dressed and ready. You might not be able to start there though. You might need to say at 7:30, I'm going to wake you up. You have 5 minutes to get dressed. And it seems overstructured and it's going to take a lot of support and a lot of you showing up and maybe even being with her while she does those first few steps, because it's going to take way more repetition to get it locked into her brain that this is the routine. But and she'll probably still push against those bounds, but kids with ADHD do so much better when they have that structure. I cannot imagine living my life now without a planner. I can't believe that I ever did it. Honestly, that's insane. But if you are somebody who is trying to support somebody who has ADHD, that kind of structure is incredibly helpful. Like setting timers, giving yourself a very hardcore deadline of okay, this is how I need to accomplish XYZ. It is very, very helpful within the classroom and without. And I'm really excited because later in the episode, I'm going to be sharing a resource that is actually going to set you up with some supports to be able to do that really, really easily in the classroom. But first, I am really excited to hear. My producer teased a little and was like, these are really good ones. So I'm very excited to listen to the voice memos that you guys sent in. So let's jump into the first one.
I think one of the craziest things that happened. We were at recess, and one of my students came running up sobbing. I thought he had hurt himself, like he was going all out. And he was saying, Miss, so and so said something about my mama, and I promise it's not true. It's not true. And I made the mistake of saying, what did he say? Thinking it's just going to be like a your mama's fat, your mama's ashy, the normal insults I hear on a daily basis. Nope. His was, he said that my daddy left when I was a baby because my mom's pussy's dry. And I swear to you, it's not dry. It's wet, miss. It's wet. It's not dry. I had to turn around to stop from laughing. And then afterwards, I had to think about first, why does that kid know what a wet or dry pee is? And secondly, how does he know that a dry one is bad? These are fourth graders.
Oh, no. No, 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 no. It's so bad. You really buried the lead by saying it's fourth grade. I mean, I knew because it was recess, right, that it was going to be somebody that was young. Wow. Wow. I feel like kids intuitively know if somebody says, like, your mama, fill in the blank, whatever, contextually, they were like, well, that's not good, right? So I'm sure that he was just like, that's not true, and was trying to defend her honor, I guess. It is kind of an interesting thing that your mama jokes are just timeless. Like, there's Shakespearean plays that have jokes about the mothers of the other characters and all of that, because we all know that it's an ultimate slam dunk if we can get one on somebody's mom like that. I feel like there were plenty of times, especially early on, because when I first started teaching, it was like 2013. And so that, like, the your mom was still very much a thing, along with that's what she said. And so they would sometimes pair those where you would be like, "Oh, that's what your mom said last night," right? Like, I feel like that's always a good one to, like, sneak in there, like a good little bit to do. I mean, not good. Don't do that. Don't make fun of people's moms, I guess. But it's a solid one, and one that I feel like is pretty timeless. It also reminds me of a conversation I just had with my son last night, and my husband was like, Andrea, why? Because I was snuggling with him. Again, he's 5, right? And so we were laying in bed, and he's like, Mom, whenever he starts like that, I always have to be like, all right, brace myself. He's like, Mom, what if what do you think it's like to have a baby? And I'm like, well, I know what it's like. You push him out. And he's like, I wish I could do that. And I was like, well, bud, it hurts a lot. And he's like, oh. And I was like, and then you got to feed him. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, moms like produce milk and they feed their babies. And he looked at me and he's like, what? How? And I was like, well, and I explained breastfeeding, right? And I was like, women lactate. That means they get milk from their nipples. And he looks at me and starts cracking up. He's like, I don't even like milk, though. What did I drink? And I was like, you also drank milk. And he's like, what? That's insane. And so he's like, with everybody? And I was like, well, some kids also drink milk from bottles and formula and all of that. And so I left the room and I was just like, I should probably text his teacher and let her know that he might be sharing some new information. But I feel like breastfeeding is one of those, like, a lot of the kids have younger siblings, so I don't feel like maybe he'll be the first one necessarily to share that information. But kids are wild. Fourth grade is an insane age, though, because I do feel like fourth grade is that age where, like, maybe the kid who made that joke to him has an older sibling that has made comments. And those are the kids I feel like that say some of the most out-of-pocket stuff, is the kids who, A, have unrestricted access to the internet, or B, have an older sibling who is a gamer and they can hear the stuff that the gamer sibling is saying. Because I'm not really part of, like, gamer culture. I never was. Like, I like video games. They're fine. But I've heard my students repeat things that I find deeply horrifying. And they're like, no, 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 no. It's like a gamer thing. Like, it's what you say to people if you're playing them in a game. And I'm like, ugh, those sound criminal. All right, let's listen to our second submission.
So I was teaching 8th grade. This was about 10 years ago. And these two guys, they were best friends. They sat next to each other in my class. The desks were very close. And one of them sharpened his pencil in the electric pencil sharpener and went and sat down, but sort of had the pencil like in his hand as he was sitting down. And it was pointed upwards. You know where this is going. And the other kid just dropped down without even looking into his desk. And apparently he landed on the pencil, but I couldn't see this happen. So I'm like, hey, guys, what's going on? You look weird. And the one who just dropped down on the pencil goes, Miss, I got a pencil in my ass. And I was like, wait, what? So it turned out this pencil was embedded in his ass muscle very deeply. And I called the nurse. And to make it even more complicated, this poor kid, he had grand mal seizures. And he didn't have a seizure that day. But the nurse got the message in a garbled fashion. So she came tearing into my room. And we were all like laughing, but like horrified at the same time. She comes tearing into the room and she's like, what's going on? What's going on? Because she thought that he was seizing. And I said, like, he has a pencil embedded. And she was so upset because she thought he was dying, but he was not. It was just a pencil in his ass. The end.
No. Okay, so I'm trying to think if it would be worse that it went into, like, she said, like, the muscle, right? So it didn't go into the rectum, which I think is probably better, because if you perforated your bowels, that could be, like, really, really bad. And I'm assuming it wasn't, like, super, super deep based on the fact that they didn't immediately call 911. But oh my gosh. The amount of emergency phone calls that are required often from various locations because of things being inserted into rectums is outrageous. The reason my brain went there is because I recently spent some time so my husband's in the medical field, and every time I hang out with anyone who's in the medical field, nurses, doctors, PAs, any of that, my immediate first question is, what is the craziest thing you've seen in the ER, right? And one of the girls that I was chatting with told me that there was someone who came in who had abdominal pain, and this abdominal pain was really severe. And they got her in, and, usually abdominal pain, they think like UTI or, pregnancy or like a lot of different things like that, right? So they immediately do a scan, and it turned out that she had three birds inside of her. Inside of her canal, not the butt. And my immediate, they were like finches apparently. And I was like, so did someone just like look in her to find this? Or because can you imagine, like, you clock in for your shift as a nurse, and I have a lot of nurses that also follow my page because nurses and teachers, like, we are in those trenches, right? And I'm like, can you just imagine being like, all right, like up in the stirrups and then feathers? That is so deeply horrifying. So apparently, no, that's not how they discovered. They just did the scan. And then there was like the x-ray tech who's like looking at the scans and is like, is that a feather? Like, is that a beak? Like, there were three birds. I believe it required surgery to remedy because you can't do that. Because they had long since perished. I don't know if they were alive when they got up there, but it is one of my favorite things to talk to EMTs and paramedics and like all the medical professionals, because if you have a friend or family member in your life that has ever worked in the ER or ever been like in the field as an EMT or paramedic, just ask them. Ask what's the craziest thing that they have had to remove from another human being. I guarantee you they will include some woodland creatures. I know somebody who had a ferret they had to remove from somebody. So, and if you yourself are one of the RNs or NPs or PAs or docs who listen to me, I would love for you to tell me what is the craziest thing that you had to remove from another individual. Because here's the thing, that nurse who responded to the student who was freaking out and had gotten, I guess, impaled. Does it have to be in the abdomen? Impale makes me feel like it's an abdomen situation. But I guess the got stabbed with a pencil in the butt. That's not going to be the craziest thing that anyone has ever had to deal with. I guarantee you. And the seizure thing is really interesting too, because if you know a student has seizures, a lot of times there's not a whole lot that you can do when that happens. I recently had a student who had a seizure in my class. So, and this, she has a known medical condition and she could feel it coming. And so I was, had her in class with me and I was chatting with her and I was like, okay, like she kind of sat down for a second and I was like, are you gonna have a seizure? And she's like, I'm not sure, but probably. And I was like, okay, do you need anything? Like, can I do anything for you? Are you gonna need to throw up afterwards? Anything like that? She's like, no. And I'm like, okay, great. And so I had like the rest of the class was working on something over there. She laid down on the ground. She had like a 30-second seizure and I did time it and just kind of watched the clock because a lot of times you don't breathe when you're seizing. And so if it's a very long one, then it can, be a little scarier. But for the most part, like it's if it's a known issue and stuff, I'm not sure if the nurse, like maybe that kid has other issues that go on with that. And I'm not a medical professional. I'm just telling you, if you have a student who has a seizure in your class, obviously, if you don't know why, then you immediately call somebody and all of that. But the biggest thing is just keeping them like on the ground so they don't try and stand up and then have another seizure and fall and all of that kind of stuff. And I've also had students with type 1 diabetes who have gone into seizures because they didn't have like sugar and stuff like that. And so, read your 504 plans and make sure you know what you're supposed to do if your student has a seizure, because unfortunately, if you were in the classroom long enough, you figure like it's pretty likely to happen eventually. I had 3 separate incidents in my 11 years of education where I've had people have seizures in my class for various reasons. So, always good to know that like most of the time it's just make sure that their head doesn't hit anything while they're seizing and all of that, and keep your hands away from their mouths. People a lot of times feel like there's that I feel like there was an Office episode where Michael like tried to put his like wallet into Stanley's mouth when he was having a heart attack because he didn't want him to swallow his tongue or something. And that's a whole thing too. Like just, read the 504 plans and make sure that you know what you're supposed to do. And, keep your walkie-talkie charged because that was always something I was bad about. All right. Wow, what a journey. I should have warned you guys that I told you this morning, my husband was like, take your medication, but it can only do so much. I am all over the place, and you're welcome for getting to bounce around with me. But when we come back from our break, I'm very excited because I had a bunch of people share this resource with me on Instagram. I asked everybody like, hey, tell me some good free resources that not enough teachers are using. So when we get back, I will share the one that a ton of people sent to me. Be right back. All right, welcome back, teacher besties. And I don't know if this is because I'm a secondary teacher or if it's because when this resource initially came out, it wasn't as user-friendly, but I have never used this before. But I have a feeling that when I start my classes in the fall, I will be using it. So it's called classroomscreen.com. Classroomscreen.com, again, free. Of course, it has some paid options, like if you wanted to have like a fancier background or something like that. But so what I have always done and what I have found really, really helpful is that I will start every single day with a slideshow where I have like music going, I have the agenda for the day, I have learning goals, I might have like a inspirational quote. I will a lot of times also include some kind of like really corny joke or something like that, right? Just something to set the vibes and all of that. And I change it day to day. And I like having that because then I can go back the next year or next semester and be like, okay, what did I do? Okay, great. But here's the challenge with that. If I want to do something interactive with the rest of the class, like a poll, or I want to try and select a group name, or I want to do something like that, that's going to be a different website. So there's pros and cons, I think, to using this resource because you can't really, Well, actually, I don't know that for sure. Maybe there are screens you can save. I'm looking at this now, and I don't know if that's true because this is the first time I'm playing with it. So if you're super familiar with that and you can save screens for like different days, you could pre-create them before the start of the week. Let me know because that's amazing. But let me go over some of the things you can do on classroomscream.com because I'm very, very impressed. So it has a bunch of cute little backgrounds. It's got a little drawing feature. Okay. So again, like very basic stuff. But then it has a sound level monitor. Okay. So it accesses the microphone on your computer. And then within that, it will allow you to set the max noise. And so there's like a little meter that if your classroom gets too loud, it will hit that. So that means when your class is working on something, you could have that up and you could have it so that you could say like, hey guys, look, you're getting too loud. Okay. There's a visible thing for them to see that, oh, they're not doing what they should be doing. There's also a poll option. So students can immediately go on and answer questions. They have like 3 different options. They have a true false, smileys, or multiple choice. So even if your kids are not able to read yet, you could still have your students do smiley face, slightly less smiley face, sad face, all of that, right? And they can answer it. Let me see here. I'm looking through as I'm explaining it to you guys. But you can go in there, they can answer it on their computers, all of that, which is great, right? So that is incredibly helpful because it's a very low stakes, like, formative assessment or some like assessment at the end of the class. So, hey guys, let me know how you did with today's lesson. And then they could just do a face, right? Okay. Another thing it has on here, is different types of work symbols. So what I mean by that is there's one that is like a face with a finger to its mouth and it says silence underneath it. And then there's one that says whisper. And then there's one that so every time I click the button to change it, it makes like what sounds like a book dropping sound. And I thought that was going to come over into your guys's, but apparently you guys cannot hear it, which is fine. But there are like 3 different things in here. There's one that says work together. There's another one that says like ask a neighbor, another that says whisper. So it's got 3 different settings. So again, another visual for students. So if you wanted them whispering or silent when they're working, you could put the little sound meter up and be like, guys, it's whisper time, right? Or it's have a conversation time and all of that. So I love this visual reminder for students. And because of the way that it's like integrated with graphics, it makes it really easy to use at every single grade. They also have a traffic light option. So if you wanted students, like if you're trying to let them know, hey guys, we're getting ready to start, you could do green, yellow, red, right? So you can change that really quickly. It has a timetable option. So you're going to have them know how long each activity is going to take. It has a timer option. And then there's a bunch of other ones, calendars, QR codes, hyperlinks, a scoreboard, stickers, an event countdown, a stopwatch, a webcam, a group maker, and a randomizer. So you could randomly pick your students' names. So how cool is that? Like, I am so hyped about this. I think I tried to use Classroom Screen like at the beginning of the pandemic, but I didn't find it to be very user-friendly because I couldn't embed any music and I was frustrated by a couple different things, so I never used it. But it has clearly gotten so much more user-friendly in the past few years. So check that out, classroomscreen.com. Again, this is not like a paid endorsement or anything like that. I just want to make sure that you guys have access to things that are going to make your lives a little bit easier, a little bit quicker, and a little bit less stressful. If you guys have resources that you're like, wow, everyone should know about this thing, you can email us or you can DM me or you can tag me in it at Educator Andrea. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. And if you have thoughts about what we chatted about today, please reach out to us again at Educator Andrea or Andrea at human-content.com. Or you can hang out with the whole Human Content Podcast family at Human Content Pods. And be sure to check out the Patreon book club. That's where the tea is, man. That's where we're vibing and hanging out. This chaotic energy, that is tenfold when I'm hanging out with Denver, who is my other human that comes on that pod. So if you're not on there yet, absolutely get on there so you can be a part of that and the books we're reading, because we are having the absolute best time. Also, if you are unaware, I am doing live shows. I'm doing live shows. I'm standing up there. I'm hanging out. I had a friend's middle school daughter remind me that if I did a show, it's possible that no one could show up. So she thought that was really funny, especially because of how sad I looked when she said it. So, it's going to be a good time. Even if it's just me and some of my best friends. I would love to hang out with you in real life. I've got a bunch of different tour dates. If you go to educatorandrea.com/tickets, there's tickets for both my solo shows and then links to the Teachers Lounge shows for the shows I'm doing with Gasper and Phil, because those are going to be a little different. So if I am going to be in the same city for both, like in doing like a show in San Diego, and then I'm going to do another one in Irvine, those are going to be very different shows, because when I perform with Gasper and Phil, we have elements of our stand-up in it, but it's very much like a live podcast kind of energy. So every single show is going to be kind of its own thing when I'm touring with Gasper and Phil. And we are so excited. It's going to be so much fun. And our first 2 shows that we did last winter, is that winter? Yeah, winter, February. They sold out. They did really, really well. So you need to get your tickets if you have not yet. And check it out, because we do have, we've got dates a lot of places, like Florida, which I haven't been to Florida in I don't know how long, probably like 20 years. So I cannot wait. I'm very, very excited. And thank you so much to the listeners who have left reviews. And if you haven't yet, what are you even doing with your life? Please go and leave a review and say something nice that will make me smile. Don't say mean things. If you want to say mean things, just DM them to me like everyone else does. And if you want to catch those full video episodes, they are up every week on YouTube at Educator Andrea. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Andrea Forkham. Our executive producers are Andrea Forkham, Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brooke. Our editor is Andrew Sims. Our engineer is Jason Portizo. Our music is by Omer Venzvi. Our recording location is the Indiana State by College of Education. To learn more about our How to Survive the Classrooms program disclaimer and ethics policy and submission verification and licensing terms, you can go to podcasterandrea.com. How to Survive the Classroom is a human content production.
How to survive the classroom.
Thank you so much for watching. Want more of How to Survive the Classroom? You can watch more episodes right now. Just click on that little box over there. You see it? And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Okay, bye.
Human content.